You're about to enjoy a Cloudcast original. Local stories, local storytellers, local brands.
Have you ever felt that you as a woman may not appear to measure up when you see incredible women in strong roles? You may be surprised when hearing from women in these positions and how we all share many of the same challenges. Thank you for joining us for the SheEO Leading In podcast with Rebecca Jones as we share the journeys of women.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Jones, your host of SheEO. We are on an exploration together to discover more about the personal journeys of incredible women in both career and life. We all have paths to share that sometimes take incredible turns, deep resilience, and courage to navigate. My hopes are that the challenges shared here encourage women to take leaps of faith and growth when a journey feels too difficult or unachievable. There is great strength deep within each one of us. These stories are meant to share the way strong women have taken their dreams to strive and thrive to new heights, despite their sometimes rocky paths, and found a way to lead in. Today, we're here with Alyssa Ramos, the Athletic Director at University of Saint Katherine. How are you today, Alyssa?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, so excited to hear all about what you're doing over at Saint Katherine's. Could you tell us a little bit about what each day looks like? I'm sure it's different, but just kind of what you do every day.
Yeah, that's kind of the cool part of my job is every day it looks different. We're a startup university, which is so unlike most universities that we have in the United States. And so one day I might start my morning on a scissor lift, putting up a new basketball hoop. And the next day I could be in meetings with coaches. And so, the days look different, but generally it's a lot of meetings with my coaches, a lot of meetings with student athletes, trying to build what we have. And then we usually have a game at night for one of our sports. So they're long days, but they're very rewarding too, because you're building something.
So what brought you into athletics like this? I'm sure you have a background in athletics. And what sport did you play?
Yeah, I grew up, sports was everything to my family. My dad's a big sports guy. And I grew up playing everything. Decided basketball was kind of my thing in college. So I played 4 years of basketball, loved it. Never thought I would get into athletics. I always had something to prove that I was more than an athlete. I don't know what that mentality really was. Like I could do something else too. But really found that my passion was college-age kids. My life changed in college, and I really wanted to give back to that age group. I feel a lot of passion and purpose there, and so I kind of fell into the University of Saint Katherine. My brother was working FCA there, which is the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and he said, hey, I heard they need people. Why don't you go interview? And I did, and so I was the assistant there for 4 years, and this is my first year as the AD.
As a woman, what does that look like?
Yeah, I think it's just normal to me. I grew up with very strong female figures in my life. And so that was very normal to me that you just lead, and that's how it is. And so I learned along the way that things don't necessarily go the same way for you all the time. But I don't think that's the majority of the time either. And so I'm really grateful that I grew up having those role models because that was the norm to me. But it has its difficulties too, as you know.
Sure.
But I look at those as opportunities. And I think that's what's important. You have to look at them as opportunities or else you can get kind of jaded. So.
Okay, so let's switch gears for just a minute. Childhood. Do you have like a fun memory that you could share with us? Just kind of talking about who you are as a person outside of your career.
Yeah, it's funny. My mom was talking about me as a kid the other day, and she was like, "You were just always so serious when it came to game time." I'm a big jokester. If you are just my friend, we're just always joking, and then it comes to game time, and I am a different person, and it's win at all costs. And I've been that way since as long as I can remember. And even, I remember I was 10 years old on the playground, and one of my teachers was like, calm down a little bit here. We're playing basketball at PE. And so not one memory doesn't really stick out, but I was definitely, that difference of I could turn it on really fast. And that carried me. I'm still kind of like that. So
your game face.
Yeah, I have a game face for sure.
That's awesome. So, thinking about who you are, do you have a word that describes you best?
That is a good question. Driven, I think. I have to work really hard on compassion and empathy, but drive is not something I struggle with. I think if people describe me, they would say something along the lines of like driven or committed or something like that. If there's a task to be done, I'm ready to do it.
Well, that's good because as an athletic director, wouldn't that be one of the traits that I think most important?
Yeah, I think so, especially at a startup, or if you're trying to build anything, right? You have to have that drive, or no one's gonna be pulling you along. You need to kind of be pushing that envelope a little bit. So yeah, I would definitely say that.
So tell us a little bit about St. Catherine's as a whole and how long the organization has been around and all that.
Yeah, so St. Catherine's is very unique to higher education. 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago, we joke about how we never really know if it's 10 or 11. Our president and founder founded the university. It's a Christian Orthodox university, and that was his vision and mission. And it started with just a small group of students, and now we're up to 260-ish. And so in the grand scheme of what we believe higher education should look like, you look at thousands, right? For us to go from 10 students 10 years ago to 263 in the modern world is actually pretty remarkable. And so we're building and we're growing, and it's exciting, and we're building through athletics, which is what I like. Obviously, as an athletic director, you want to build through what is yours. And so it's exciting, and we have 13 sports now. We started with just 4. And yeah, it's exciting. We're building.
So how do you measure success in all of that? I think 263, while it sounds kind of small, if you look at, starting from nothing to 10, in the last 10 or 11 years, since we're not sure.
Yeah, we're not sure.
Yeah. How does that success look for you?
Yeah, measuring success in athletics looks different for most places. You go to a big institution and you have to win or you're done, right? We're at an institution where we want you to be developing the whole person. We ask that of our coaching staff. And we're very upfront about that to our recruits. We want to win. I'm probably the most competitive person in the department, if not right there with them. But at the end of the day, we really want to develop that person into who they're going to be for the rest of their lives. Good husbands, good wives, fathers, all of that. And so we measure success based on a couple things. The first one, we're at a Christian university. We want to see our teams experiencing spiritual formation. That can look different for a lot of them. And it does look different for a lot of them. And we like that it can look different for everybody. So spiritual formation is a big aspect. And then the development of our teams looks very different as well. But we want to win. And, we're seeing that now. 2 years ago, we weren't involved with any conference, any affiliation. And this year, we brought home 2 championships. And so we're pursuing graduations, championships, and spiritual formation. Those are our big keys to success.
So failure. With success comes failure. So is there something you could share with us about any time that maybe you have failed at something?
Yeah, every day.
Right?
Yeah.
I love how transparent you are because that is a big deal. A lot of people just want to talk about the warm, fuzzy things, the great stuff they're doing. They show on Facebook this one thing that's happening, or I guess Instagram, also. But, they have this, facade of being a certain way. And I think failure is part of success.
Totally.
And so why don't you talk about that with us?
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's in the moments of failure that you're actually growing too. And that sounds so cliche. But, when I walked into this job, I was 22. And I was expected to lead 15 people who are all a decade older than me, most of them, if not more. And I made a lot of mistakes. You come in and you kind of have this fiery mentality, right? I got to prove myself. And, you're like, well, you kind of look like you're 16 years old, kid. And so I made a lot of mistakes early on with personnel, lack of compassion for whatever they had going on outside of work. I had a goal in mind, and you were in the way of my goal, right? I don't care about your personal life. I only care about the task that needs to be completed. And now, I'm not saying I'm old by any means. I'm 26, but I look back on those early years and I go, wow, I made I had some real shortcomings with my personnel who are the heartbeat of the university, right? They mean everything. To show them a little bit more compassion for the whole person, rather than, hey, I'm trying to win a championship here, or do you want to win a championship here?
Right.
And so you can lose people really quick on that. And I made those mistakes early on, and now I'm very conscious of, okay, how does this person feel across from me? What is it like to be on the other side of Alyssa right now? And some of our employees, we use that language in conversation of it doesn't feel great to be on the other side of you right now. We have that common language and we can talk about that. But those were some big mistakes I made early on.
Well, I think having those conversations with your employees, there's a lot of transparency in that. And I think there's a lot of respect that can be gained from that.
Yeah, totally.
If you avoid it and pretend like it never happened, that's probably not very helpful. But when you're having those conversations, I think people have the freedom to say, yeah, I guess we can have a conversation. And I think you can actually grow better together.
Absolutely.
Once that happens. Yeah.
And once you have that, people will run through a wall for you if they feel like you trust them and they trust you and you can be honest about where you're at. All of a sudden, our entire company culture changes, right? There's a little bit more respect. I understand where you're coming from. You understand where I'm coming from. And it builds this culture of just overall people are just so much happier to be at work because they feel understood.
Well, and a reminder that you've got a common goal.
Exactly.
The common goal is not just the one thing, it's all of it together. And I like, go back to the whole culture of all the things that you're looking for and, what that looks like. I think your two governing focuses there, what again?
Spiritual formation, huge one.
Yes, it is.
And then we kind of couple together graduations and championships.
But the spiritual formation part is the really part that intrigued me because you're right. It's not just one thing. It's the whole being.
It is. Yeah.
It really is.
And that can be difficult to speak to because you have 263 people who all have a different outlook on every single facet of that entire being. And so it takes very special staff members who can connect with people and meet them right where they're at. And we have that, which is really cool. And it's taken us 5 years to get there. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, it's a challenge for sure. But at the end of the day, when I watch our kids walk across the stage at graduation, I'm like, that is a different kid than the one that walked in at 18 years old and their mom dropped them off, right? And that gives you a lot of passion and purpose for what you're doing when you see that. And so that's kind of what keeps us going.
Well, and I think community is all different sorts of people together, and you're all, again, back to your point, it's going to look different for everyone. It is, but that's community.
Yeah.
And in a day and age where true diversity is not, if you don't think like, it's no longer if you don't think like me, then I'm against you. I love that you guys are doing that because I really do think that's life-changing for many people to feel accepted where they're at, kind of back to your point on that. So I find it fascinating, actually.
It's not perfect, I can tell you that. We have a lot of speed bumps, but...
Well, life is messy, right?
It is, yeah.
It really is.
It really is.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about balance because obviously you're probably going to work very hard because of those games at night and all that. How do you balance your work life and your personal life? Yeah,
this is something I'm really bad at. So
we all are. We all are. You've got to try to. It's a trial and error thing.
It is. Yeah. It's funny. Last week, we had the national convention for our association, and kind of a full circle, cool story. My old athletic director when I was in college. Now we work together at these conventions, and he's like one of my biggest mentors. Love him, and we're sharing an Uber back to the airport, and he's like, "How are you balancing your work and life?" And I just turned to him and I was like, right now, I'm not your colleague. I'm your mentee. And I'm just going to tell you that like 3 dudes have broken up with me over my job, And he was just laughing and we were just like joking about it. And he was like, you have to learn to put up the boundaries of, yes, you're working towards something and it can be all consuming because you love it. But you have this other facet of your family who you also love. And so that is truly something I'm really learning right now is what is so important that it needs my attention right now at 10 p.m. and what is pulling me because I want to do this, but not more important than my mom sitting next to me and not more important than my brother sitting next to me. That is a learning curve for me, but I have to consciously be like, 10 p.m., put it down. We don't need to do that right now. But it's because I love it so much, which is also kind of special in and of itself.
Can I give you a little hope here?
Yeah, please do.
I find myself struggling with that too.
Mm-hmm.
And, here I am. I'm actually, I could be your mother. I'm going to be 55 next month. I look at all of the things in life and I do when I've really done very well at times and I've done very poor at times. That job of balance is really tough. And I don't think it gets easier. It's very cyclical though. There are moments where I go, gosh, I am doing so well at that. And then there are times I go, I am just a mess.
Yeah.
I just can't juggle everything. And yeah, there are things that sometimes need your immediate attention. But the truth is, we are, and back to the whole spiritual part of it, we are, we're living in the human, condition. And that is, we fail. We fail a lot. And we're never going to be perfect. And we, having that, recognizing as an older woman, speaking to you, you're going to fail at times. And guess what? It's okay.
Yeah.
And back to your point of failure actually creates opportunities. It's true. And, you just have to keep striving and taking one step forward and, saying, okay, I've made a mistake and I blew it on that, but guess what? Tomorrow I'm going to do better because every day is new. So don't be so hard on yourself. And yes, it's hard to have relationships when you are, in this job that is all consuming at moments. So don't be too hard on yourself. Give yourself a little bit of grace.
Super important. And that wisdom is, it's so great. We're our biggest critics.
We are.
And so to be gentle with yourself is really important, but still to be honest about that cycle.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. And I definitely take it to heart.
So as a female leader, what's one of the most significant barriers that you think you've had so far?
That's a great question. Barriers. I'm very fortunate that I don't feel like I've hit a lot of barriers in terms of because I am a woman. In fact, I feel like a lot of opportunities have come across my desk because I am a young woman. I think the major barrier that I would even, and this is even kind of a reach, is learning to communicate with the older generation. As much as we can get a little bit cynical with that sometimes of however you want to kind of phrase that, it's just as important that we enlighten them into what we see and be gentle with them. And so I find that barrier actually more with myself of, hey, why don't you let the guard down a little bit and try and communicate with this person right where they're at. But I do find that a lot with I'm usually the youngest by a good 15, 20 years, and if not more. And so I do find that kind of rising up in myself that I'm flustered by this. Why can't I communicate with this person? And it's just, you need to work on the art of communicating with someone who's not like you. But I would say that's my biggest barrier for sure.
And that's actually one of the best things about life, in my opinion, is listening to different perspectives and growing in it. And, I am in politics. One of the things that I used to, people laugh at me when I say this, but truly I actually experienced this when I was a new home sales agent. That door, when it opens, whether I'm out knocking on doors or whether I was in new home sales and someone was walking through the door that I'd never met before, I was always excited about what are they going to be like, and what feedback am I going to get, and it's someone new that you wouldn't normally probably meet in your everyday life because they're not in your circle, which I think brings forward this whole part of knowledge that's not yours, someone else's. And how do you incorporate that in what you're thinking? And I think it is important. And, back to my point a little bit earlier, in a day and age where there are many people that just say, oh, you think differently than me, and so I don't care what you have to say.
Yeah.
I think more now than ever, people that are open to that, open to knowledge, open to hearing someone else's perspective, I think it's huge.
Yeah.
I think it's huge.
Agree.
And as a younger person and as an older people, I actually look at my kids often. They're 22 and 26. And I think to myself, okay, I don't think like them, but I want to understand why they think what they think, because I need to also have their perspective in my mind too.
Yep.
Because it helps all of us do a better job. And whatever our career is, it doesn't matter. I mean, whether it's athletics, whether it's politics, whether it's selling something, or, even working at in retail or commercial, it is important for us to have someone else's perspective and
Absolutely.
keep that in the back of our mind. So, moving forward in thinking about leading men, because I'm sure you lead a lot of them in your job, do you experience any resistance as a woman? Because maybe it is more of your age, or maybe it's a combination of both. Tell me about that.
In that Uber ride I was telling you about, we actually talked about that too. He's not older by any means. He's in his 50s, and he is like, I don't know what it's like to be a 26-year-old female trying to lead this department. And I just told him, I rarely experience, or maybe I do, and I'm completely ignorant to it.
That might be good.
That's a good thing, right? I rarely sit across from or in a group of men that are either ADs or coaches and feel as though my perspective is not heard because I'm a woman. There's been a couple occasions where I have felt that, but I rarely feel that. And I think that the reason why is because they may have an idea of who they think you are when you walk in based on how you look, right?
Yeah.
And for me personally, I know no one can see me, but I look younger than I am, and I'm already young. And so I can understand how when I walk in, people are like, "Who is that?" I don't understand, what's going on here. As soon as you speak, if you are confident and you know what you're talking about,
yep,
that goes away really quick.
Yeah.
And I have found a lot of favor with that. One thing my dad always used to tell me is know your numbers. And if I know every single number in my department when I'm talking to my president, there's not a lot of room for questions on whether or not I know what I'm talking about with our budget and things like that. And that has taken me a long way in a lot of those conversations. Do I think that is still do I think women still experience those barriers? Absolutely. And I have experienced them, but I would not say that it's the majority of my experience by any means.
Well, and back to your point, you might be oblivious to some of it,
which
honestly is not a bad place to be in.
Yeah.
Because if you walk into a room knowing your subject matter, I agree with you. There could be these preconceived notions, but once you start speaking and you know what you're talking about, that all does kind of go to the side because it becomes irrelevant.
Absolutely. And, I would never want to minimize anyone's experience. I know that people experience that. And I think that's really sad and something that society can definitely work towards. But I'm also grateful that I have a lot of men in my department who have a lot of respect for me, and I have a lot of respect for them. And I know that's not the case everywhere, but I'm really grateful for that at my school. So you talked a little bit about the Uber ride with your mentor.
Yeah. Do you have any other mentors that you could really look back and say, yeah, they've really shaped who I am and what I've become?
Yeah, Drew, he's the athletic director at Southeastern, who I'm talking about in the Uber. Mm-hmm. He has definitely been the most influential on my career. Mm-hmm. I got to kind of be his little sidekick for a while in college. And then as soon as I stepped into this role, if something happens, I call him. He is my first call. Yeah. But my brother has really been the most influential person in my life in terms of who I am today. Mm-hmm. He was like, I swear to you, like no big brother there ever was. He's like the best big brother ever. And he has always taken the time out of his life to ask me how I am, but also push me to be better.
And it's just the two of you?
It's just the two of us, yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so he was the best big brother. But he's the most like wise 30-year-old I've ever met in my life. We joke he's like the oldest soul, but he's had the most influence on my character development for sure.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
So what are some lessons that you've learned that you'd like to share with young women that they can learn and apply to their lives?
Yeah, I think my perspective is so limited comparatively to probably a lot of people that you have in this room.
Don't let your age shape what you're thinking right
now. No, I think it's simple. You know that you have a seat at the table. You're supposed to be there and be confident in that. I think as women, sometimes we can be insecure for reasons that men, for some reason, are not. I don't know if you've ever seen this, and I'm probably butchering it, but there was this study done on what jobs men will apply for, even if they don't meet the qualifications, and whether or not women would apply for those jobs with a similar qualification to the men. And the men would always apply, even if they didn't meet a single one of the qualifications. But if the women didn't meet one, they wouldn't apply. And I thought that was so interesting. And I think it comes back to this dynamic of where you need to know that you belong there and your voice matters and know your numbers and you're going to be okay.
Well, you said something a little bit earlier, I think the reason of why that is. And that's because we're our own worst critics. Mm-hmm. I mean, I always tell, and I say this often to my daughter too, there is always going to be someone in the room, another woman, that is one maybe better at this or better at that. Mm-hmm. The beautiful thing about women is we're all beautiful, right? And no, I'm not sorry I said that, men. We're all beautiful, and we have something very special about us, something unique too. And we weren't made for no reason. We were made because we have this special character about us, but it's different in every single woman. But when we start comparing ourselves to other women, my gosh, we're just worried about, and that's what society does. It does actually kind of, I think, increase the amount of times that we compare ourselves to other women, and really, that's like the death of our souls, truly, because then it scares us so much that we get all this fear brought in by comparison. Yeah, and the truth is, we can't live to our best opportunities that we have created for us if we're doing that to ourselves. Yeah,
you're not free to even remotely entertain whatever may come your way because you're so concerned with what you look like, or am I as good looking as the person next to me, or
am I as smart as?
Exactly what you just said.
Am I this? Am I that? Yeah, I mean, you could do that all day long. And so for me, there's a lot of mean girls out there that will do that. Yeah. I always say, don't be a mean girl. Yeah. Be a woman that actually builds up other women, because when we're doing it singularly, we're doing it really as a whole. Yeah. And we do all have something special about us. Yeah. I love that that we're all unique. And really, uniqueness is something we should never, ever strive to lose. I'm never going to look like Kim Kardashian. She's beautiful, but I don't look anything like her. I have a different body type. I have a different color hair. I'm way older than her. I mean, and it's okay. And I'm okay with that. Yeah. And I think confidence, and you're clearly very confident. It is probably one of the most attractive thing about women is when we're confident in who we are and that it's okay to be different than someone else. So anyway, that being said, so let's talk a little bit about your journey. It seems to me a lot of it had to do with, being brought up with sports and having a love of sports. But is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I love sports, but I love a good system and I love processes. And, I was the kid that would study the plays. Nobody ever liked plays. You just want to play. But I was like, oh, I know that this back door will lead to this, this, this. I loved that stuff, and I didn't realize until I stepped into the professional world that would help me so much in terms of compliance, right? Systems, processes, all those things. I just didn't know then that my life would turn into sports, but at the administrative level, I'm not actually involved in any of the sports. I'm involved in compliance, paperwork, leadership, coaching. Coaching my coaches. I never actually I haven't touched a basketball. I don't know the last time I touched a basketball, and so my life still gets to be involved in the thing that I love and I grew up with, but it's not actually tied to the game anymore. And I have really enjoyed that switch.
And what did you do before, career-wise?
This was it. I walked right into this after college. And so, I've been there. I don't have any plans of doing anything else. So
you never made coffee or anything like that?
So if you want a good story.
I want to be a barista sometimes.
No, I think that all the time. Every time I walk into Starbucks, I worked, my family loves this story. My senior year of high school, I was like, I want to work at Hot Dog on a Stick so that I can wear that uniform.
That. Yeah.
And I did it. and they have all the pictures to prove it. But that was kind of my only other job. Other than that, I worked for the athletic department at the university I went to and things like that. So yeah, I've always kind of made my way back to athletics.
That's hilarious. So you walk into a room of young women, okay, and you're thinking, okay, I'm going to give them some advice. And what would that be? They want to be leaders. What would your advice be to them?
Know yourself to lead yourself. You have to. You have got to have a sense of identity, because if you don't know yourself, you cannot lead you and you can't lead anybody else. And so going on that journey of self-awareness, identity, and being okay with the fact that that is going to be a journey for the rest of your life. You're never going to be perfect at that, but progressing in that, I just don't think that you can lead others unless you do that.
Well, and that's good advice. You can't, because if you're trying to be like other people and metamorphose it into that, but you don't know who you truly are and what your gifts are, because we all have gifts. If you don't know what those are, how can you possibly even begin to lead anybody?
You can't.
Yeah. And because you'd be constantly changing and not able to actually do that. So what's next in your journey?
That is the $1 million question, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, do we have any ideas?
I really like what I do. My whole life, I feel like I've been what's next. And for the first time in my life, I feel like I'm very happy with what I do and where I am. You can't, if you tell anybody at these national conventions, you can be 26 years old living in San Diego doing what you love, they would be like, where do I sign up?
Right.
And I'm building something with a group of people that I love. And so I know what I have, and I don't want to lose that for what I think is grass is greener. But I don't think anybody can really tell you I'm going to be here forever or I'm going to go do this.
Right.
I know that I want my foot in the door in the athletic realm for the rest of my life, but that could look different as I progress and age and decide, what's a good priority for me in life. So I'm good where I'm at right now, but who knows?
That's awesome. Well, Alyssa, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate your time and the conversation. I think it's fascinating. And really, I don't think I've ever met anyone as young as you, as wise as you, and really knowing who they are. And I can tell you at 26, I was still pretty confused about what I wanted to do with myself. So, outside of, wanting to have a family and all that, I love that you are very driven and you are doing such amazing things. And I'm really excited to see what you do next.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now that was powerful. We hope you've been lifted and encouraged by today's inspiring voice. Always remember that life doesn't look exactly the same for each one of us. Never stop dreaming, striving, and thriving. In future episodes, we look forward to bringing you powerful stories from amazing women who learn how to lead in to challenges. Thank you for listening and being part of our community with SheEO host, Rebecca Jones.
You have been listening to a Cloudcast original. Local stories, local storytellers, local brands. Find more stories at cloudcast.us.